There are moments in life that break us open. Moments when the weight of disappointment, loss, or failure feels so heavy that even breathing becomes an act of courage. Maybe you've been there, lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how you're supposed to keep going when everything inside of you feels shattered. We don't always talk about these moments because they're messy, painful, and vulnerable. But the truth is, every single one of us has known what it feels like to be brought to our knees by life. Hard times don't ask for permission before they enter our lives. They arrive unannounced in the form of heartbreak, betrayal, illness, financial struggle, or loss. And when they do, they strip away the illusions we cling to. They remind us that no matter how strong or successful or put together we appear, none of us is immune to suffering. This is the raw and honest truth about being human. Struggle is not a possibility, it is a certainty. But here's something we rarely hear in the middle of our pain. Being broken is not the end of your story. In fact, it might be the very place where your story truly begins. Because resilience isn't born in comfort. It isn't built in moments of ease. Resilience is forged in the fire of hard times. It is discovered in the ashes when everything we thought we could depend on has fallen apart. It is in that place where giving up feels like the easier choice that the daring act of rising becomes possible. I want to be clear, resilience is not about pretending to be okay when you're not. It's not about putting on a brave face or silencing your pain so that others won't see your struggle. True resilience is about acknowledging the brokenness, sitting with the discomfort, and still choosing to rise, one small step at a time. It is about daring to keep going, even when the road ahead feels impossible. Think of the people who have inspired you the most in life. Were they people who never stumbled, never fell, never faced hardship? No. They were the ones who rose after being knocked down. The ones who turned wounds into wisdom. The ones who allowed their pain to become a source of compassion, strength, and courage. That is the essence of resilience. And maybe you're listening to this today because you need a reminder that you are stronger than you realize. That even in this season of hardship, even when the ground beneath you feels unstable, you have within you a strength that cannot be destroyed. Resilience doesn't mean you won't feel fear, grief, or doubt. It means you will not let those feelings keep you from moving forward. There will be days when rising feels impossible, days when the weight of what you carry seems too much. And on those days, remember this: resilience is not about rising quickly or rising perfectly. It's about daring to rise at all. It's about whispering to yourself, I may not be okay right now, but I will not stay here forever. It's about trusting that the small steps matter, that even the slowest progress is still progress, and that every time you rise, you grow stronger. So as we begin this journey together, I want you to hold on to one truth. Hard times will shape you, but they do not have to define you. You are not just the story of your pain, you are the story of your rising. And that story, the story of how you choose to get back up, may become the most powerful, life-changing chapter of all. Life has a way of reminding us that struggle is not an exception. It is part of the human condition. Yet so many of us grow up believing that if we are strong enough, smart enough, or careful enough, we can somehow avoid pain. We live with this quiet illusion that if we work hard, love deeply, and do everything right, we'll be spared from the storms. But reality is far less gentle. Life breaks through those illusions with an undeniable truth. Struggle finds us all. Maybe for you it was the phone call you never expected, the diagnosis that changed everything. Maybe it was the loss of someone you couldn't imagine living without. Maybe it was the dream job that slipped through your fingers, the betrayal of someone you trusted, or the silent ache of loneliness that won't let you rest. Struggle wears many faces, but it always feels the same. It feels like the ground you thought was solid has disappeared beneath you. In those moments, we often ask ourselves, why me? What did I do to deserve this? It's a question born of pain, but it's also born of a misunderstanding. Because struggle isn't a punishment, it's a part of being alive. The people you admire, the ones who seem unshakable, have not been spared hardship. They have simply faced it and chosen to keep going. If you peel back the layers of every strong soul, you will always find scars. And yet we live in a culture that tells us to hide our wounds, to keep smiling even when our hearts are breaking, to post the highlights, filter the flaws, and pretend we have it all together. This false perfection isolates us, making us believe that we are alone in our struggles. But the truth is, everyone you pass on the street carries an invisible battle you cannot see. Struggle is the great equalizer. It touches us all, regardless of age, status, or circumstance. There's a dangerous myth that says struggle is weakness, that asking for help is failure, that vulnerability is shameful. but nothing could be further from the truth. Struggle is not weakness. It is proof that you are alive, that you are human, that you are moving through a world that tests every one of us. Struggle is the soil in which resilience takes root. Without it, resilience cannot exist. I want to be honest here. Struggle hurts. It doesn't just sting, it breaks us open. It strips us of certainty, of control, of the comfort of believing we are untouchable. And that breaking is painful, sometimes unbearably so. But it's also the place where growth begins. When we are stripped bare, we are forced to discover parts of ourselves we never knew existed. The strength we didn't know we carried, the courage we didn't know we could muster, the hope that somehow survives even in the darkest night. If you are in the middle of a struggle right now, I want you to hear this. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not weak for feeling pain. You are not failing because life feels heavy. You are living the human story, the same story that connects us all. And in that story, suffering is not the end. It is a chapter, not the whole book. We don't have to glamorize struggle. We don't have to pretend it's easy. It's not. But we can tell the truth about it, that it is real, that it is hard, and that it is survivable. Because the reality of struggle is this. It is the place where resilience is born. Not in the easy days, not in the moments of victory, but in the nights when you want to give up. And somehow, against all odds, you take one more step forward. Every struggle brings us to a crossroads. One path whispers the temptation of giving up, of staying down, of letting the weight of life pin us permanently to the ground. The other path whispers something quieter, something harder to believe in the moment. Rise. Not because it's easy, not because you're ready, not because the pain has disappeared, but because there is something in you that refuses to stay broken. This is the heart of resilience. It isn't the absence of fear, doubt, or exhaustion. It's the decision to rise despite them. Choosing to rise doesn't mean you aren't afraid. It doesn't mean you aren't tired. It doesn't mean you have everything figured out. It means that even in your trembling, even in your uncertainty, you are daring to take one step forward. Think about a time when you felt like you couldn't go on. Maybe the grief was too deep, the failure too humiliating, the rejection too sharp. Maybe you thought, I'll never recover from this. And yet here you are. Maybe you're not where you want to be yet. Maybe the scars are still fresh, but you survived. You rose. That was resilience. That was your inner strength showing up in the middle of your storm. Rising is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, almost invisible. It's getting out of bed on a day when your heart feels heavy. It's making the phone call to ask for help. It's showing up to work when you'd rather disappear. It's looking in the mirror and saying, I'm still here. Those small acts of courage are just as powerful as the big ones, because resilience is not a single moment of triumph. It is 1,000 small choices to keep moving, even when everything in you wants to stop. The choice to rise is deeply personal, but it's also deeply universal. Every human being faces moments where staying down feels safer than standing back up. But here's the truth. When you rise, you don't just rise for yourself. You rise for everyone who is watching, whether you know it or not. You rise for the friend who needs to believe healing is possible. You rise for the child who needs to see that setbacks are not the end of the story. You rise for the countless others who will draw strength from your courage. Rising doesn't erase the struggle. It doesn't magically fix what was broken, but it changes the narrative. It says, this will not define me. This will not be the end. And that decision, sometimes made in tears, sometimes made in exhaustion, marks the beginning of a new chapter. When you choose to rise, you begin to discover something extraordinary. Resilience grows every time you use it. It's like a muscle. The first time, it feels impossible, like you have no strength left. But with every choice to rise, you become stronger, braver, more certain of who you are. You begin to realize that even though life may knock you down again, you now carry proof that you can rise again. So when the next storm comes, and it will remember that you have already survived storms before, you have already chosen to rise. And that memory, that truth, will carry you forward. Resilience is not about never falling. It's about never staying down. It's about daring to rise. Again and again, no matter how many times life knocks you over. That choice, the choice to rise, is one of the most powerful acts of courage you will ever make. If resilience is the courage to rise, then the question becomes, where does that courage come from? What is it that allows some people to get back up, even when life has knocked them down again and again? The truth is, resilience is not some rare quality that a few lucky people are born with. It is not reserved for the strongest, the smartest, or the most successful. Resilience is something we can all build. It is a practice, a way of living, a set of choices that over time shape us into people who rise again and again. The first building block of resilience is self-compassion. So many of us are quick to show kindness to others, but brutal toward ourselves. We call ourselves weak when we cry, failures when we fall, and unworthy when we struggle. But the truth is, no one can rise when they are weighed down by self-criticism. Resilience begins when we stop beating ourselves up for being human. It grows when we speak to ourselves with the same gentleness we would offer to a friend. Self-compassion doesn't make us soft. It makes us strong enough to keep going. The second building block is connection. Resilient people do not rise alone. We need others to remind us of who we are when we forget. We need people who will sit with us in the dark without trying to fix us, who will believe in us when our own hope runs out. Asking for help is not weakness, it is courage. It is saying, I can't carry this by myself, but I don't have to. Community is one of the greatest sources of resilience, because together we can rise in ways we could never rise alone. The third building block is perspective. Pain can feel like the whole story, but resilience helps us zoom out and remember it's only a chapter. Perspective doesn't erase the struggle, it reframes it. It helps us ask, what can this teach me? How can this shape me? Where might this lead me? When we shift from asking, why me, to asking, what now, we open the door to growth. That shift in perspective is not about denying the hurt. It's about refusing to let the hurt have the last word. The fourth building block is meaning. When we can connect our struggles to something bigger than ourselves, resilience deepens. Maybe it's the parent who keeps going because their children need them. Maybe it's the artist who turns their pain into creation. Maybe it's the survivor who shares their story so others know they're not alone. Meaning turns suffering into fuel. It transforms what tried to break us into a force that builds us. The final building block is hope. Hope is not naive optimism or pretending everything is fine. Real hope is gritty, grounded, and unshakable. It is the belief that no matter how dark the night, morning will come. Hope whispers, this is not the end. You will rise again, and when we carry hope, even in small doses, we carry the courage to keep moving forward. Resilience is not built in one day or from one decision. It is built brick by brick through self-compassion, through connection, through perspective, through meaning, through hope. And the good news is, you already carry the ability to build it. Every time you treat yourself kindly, instead of harshly, resilience grows. Every time you lean on someone you trust, resilience grows. Every time you choose to see the lesson hidden in the pain, resilience grows. Every time you turn your hurt into purpose, resilience grows. And every time you choose to believe that better days are possible, resilience grows. This is how ordinary people rise from extraordinary hardships. Not by being superhuman, but by building resilience one choice at a time. And the more you practice, the stronger you become, not invincible, but unbreakable in spirit. When we talk about resilience, it's not just about surviving, it's about what happens after survival. Because something extraordinary happens when you dare to rise. You don't just return to who you were before the struggle. You become someone stronger, someone deeper, someone who carries both scars and wisdom. Scars are powerful teachers. They remind us not only of what we've endured, but of what we've overcome. A scar is proof that healing has taken place, that the wound did not have the final word. Too often, we try to hide our scars out of shame. We cover them up, fearing that they will make us look weak or broken. But the truth is, scars are not signs of weakness. They are signs of resilience. They are symbols of survival, courage etched into our very being. Think about the times in your life when you faced something you thought would break you. Maybe it was a heartbreak that left you shattered. Maybe it was a failure that made you question your worth. Maybe it was grief so heavy you thought you'd never breathe freely again. And yet, here you are. Different, yes. Changed, absolutely. But stronger, more compassionate, more aware of the strength you didn't know you had. That's the gift of rising. It doesn't erase the pain, but it transforms it into power. When we rise, we gain empathy. Hardship has a way of softening our hearts toward others. Once you've walked through darkness, you can recognize it in someone else's eyes. You can sit with them in their pain without rushing to fix it. You can say, I know what it feels like to be there, and your presence becomes a lifeline. This is one of the hidden strengths of resilience. It connects us, It reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles, and it allows us to become a source of hope for others. Rising also gives us perspective. After surviving something hard, the little things don't shake us as easily. We begin to see what truly matters: love, connection, authenticity, purpose. The things we once thought were unbearable, setbacks begin to feel like stepping stones. Struggles don't shrink us, they expand us. They widen our vision and deepen our gratitude. And perhaps most importantly, rising teaches us trust. Trust in ourselves, trust in our ability to endure, trust that even if life knocks us down again, and it will, we now carry the proof that we can rise again. This trust is what allows us to face the future, not with fear, but with quiet courage. Because once you know you've survived before, you carry the unshakable truth that you can survive again. Here's the beautiful paradox. The moments you thought would destroy you often become the very moments that define you. The pain you wished you could erase becomes the soil from which your greatest strength grows. The story you once wanted to hide becomes the story that inspires someone else to keep going. Rising doesn't just change your life, it has the power to change the lives of others. So if you're still in the middle of your struggle, I want you to hold on to this hope. One day you will look back on this moment, and you will see not only the pain, but the strength it called forth in you. You will see how this season shaped you into someone braver, wiser, more compassionate than before. You will see how your scars became a map of survival, a testimony that you rose stronger. Because resilience is not about going back to who you were. It's about becoming someone new, someone who has been tested, who has endured, who has risen, and who now carries a strength that cannot be taken away. There comes a point in every journey through hardship when we realize resilience is not just about surviving the storm. It's about daring to rise again and again. No matter how many times life knocks us down, rising is not about perfection. It's not about never breaking. It's about refusing to let the breaking be the end of the story. Life will test you. It will push you to your limits. It will bring moments where the night feels endless and the weight of what you carry feels unbearable. But in those moments, remember this: you are stronger than you think. You have already faced days you thought would destroy you, and yet you are still here. You are proof that resilience is real, that courage lives inside you even when you can't feel it, that hope is stubborn enough to survive even the darkest night. Resilience doesn't mean rising quickly. It doesn't mean rising without scars. It means rising anyway. Rising slowly, rising painfully, rising imperfectly, but rising all the same. And each time you rise, you discover a little more of your strength, a little more of your courage, a little more of the truth that you are unbreakable in spirit. You may not see it right now, but your rising matters. It matters to you, and it matters to the people who are watching you, the ones who need to know that it's possible to survive, to heal, to keep going. Your story of resilience will one day become someone else's story of hope. The way you rise will remind someone else that they can rise too. So I want you to carry this truth with you. You are not defined by your struggles. You are defined by your rising. You are not the pain that tried to break you. You are the strength that carried you through. You are not your failures or your losses. You are the courage that refused to stay down. The next time life brings you to your knees, and it will remember that you are not powerless. You are not alone. You are not finished. You have the strength to rise again. And when you do, you will rise not as the same person you were before, but as someone stronger, wiser, braver, and more alive than you ever imagined. Daring to rise does not mean the journey will be easy, but it does mean the journey will be worth it. Because every time you rise, you reclaim your life. Every time you rise, you take back your power. Every time you rise, you prove to yourself and to the world that resilience is real, that the human spirit is unbreakable. So let this be your declaration. I will fall, but I will rise. I will break, but I will heal. I will be tested, but I will not be defeated. No matter how many times life pushes me down, I will dare to rise again. Because resilience is not just something we talk about, it is something we live. And when you choose to live it, when you dare to rise, you become unstoppable.